Hey everyone, I'm Jason McKnight and I'm here in the studio with Ben Hendricks. Ben, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Hi. Hey, everybody.
It's good to be here. We got to tell you, we have an addition to the team. Will Calhoun is running the camera, the soundboard, the software, everything, Ben, so that, he's going to make us look and sound even better.
Well, I know he can make us sound better because he already has. But look is a mighty feat.
Well, and next thing is he's going to start writing the content, and then it'll be really good.
I know. You know how good the worship's going to be when we take that off Kent's plate?
I mean, we'll just put it all on Will. Hey, well, Will, we're glad you're with us. And everybody else out there listening while you're driving and making dinner and whatever else running, we're glad you're with us. In January this past year, we did an episode, number 89. We did an episode on cognitive biases, those mental shortcuts that we take that can get us into trouble.
Amen.
So it's a cognitive bias is a framework that we develop a lot of times subconsciously to process info that's coming at us. And sometimes this hurts us. Confirmation bias or optimism bias, my favorite.
Yeah.
Or halo effect or spotlight effect. Or the best one of all by title is Zeigarnik effect. Mm-hmm. Now you got to go back to episode 89, Biases, Blind Spots, and Boxing People In, to learn more about that. But today we want to go forward. We want to circle back to that idea of mental shortcuts, but we want to do it on the positive side, how they can be helpful and how healthy shortcuts really can help us process information simpler, faster, better to make wiser, healthier decisions. Now, Ben, why do we need to worry about making decisions?
Well, and so because as leaders, and we'll just have a second to remind everybody that you're a leader. Every one of us, in a way, is a leader. We're a leader in our homes. We're a leader with our kids and our families. We're a leader at work. We're a leader in our churches. In some way, you are a leader. So this is for you.
Even if you're just leading yourself.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Because decisions matter for you too. So keep going.
Exactly, yeah. You're a leader, and as leaders, we're all making decisions. Part of being a leader is making decisions. And it can be a wide range of decisions. There's the easy that go all the way to those really hard decisions, the little decisions all the way to those really big ones that affect everyone. Those simple ones that you just make kind of in an instant to the really complex ones that take a lot of time. Those fast decisions, I can make that decision now, to the really slow ones. We are all in some spectrum of easy to hard, little to big, simple to complex, fast to slow of decisions. And so what we've found is that as leaders, we're constantly making decisions. And so somewhere along the way, we create kind of pathways, thoughts that can sometimes lead us astray to help make easy decisions. Those are the cognitive biases.
Yep.
But we form kind of shortcuts that help us make decisions faster, better, wiser, and easier.
And I love the title of them.
And so, as leaders, we all need ways. We call these rules of thumb. And then all the fancy people, they call them philosophical razors.
Wow.
And that these rules of thumb, these razors, their whole purpose is to simplify the decisions that we make. Don't you want to be able to make decisions a little faster, a little easier, and to have them ultimately be better?
Mm-hmm.
So a quick definition is that...
why did they call them razors?
Yeah, in philosophy, they're really hairy there.
In philosophy, it's all the beards.
That's why, exactly. In philosophy, a razor is a principle or a rule of thumb that allows for the elimination, the shaving off, hence razor, of unlikely explanations for a phenomenon. I mean, we all know this. When you're making a decision, the faster you can get rid of all the bad decisions, the faster you get to a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that simple. So a philosophical razor, this is important, don't miss this, is not an unbreakable law or rule. So this wasn't thus says the Lord. But it is not, and so it's not always right 100% of the time, but it is right more often than it's not. So what we're going to see here is we're going through these 10 plus a bonus, is that you'll go, oh yeah, I've seen how that one's affected me, but then you might pause and I've felt how that one's burned me before, or how it led me. They're not always right, but they're right more often than they're not.
Love it.
And so what we want to do today is lay out these 10 plus a bonus that we think if you'll apply to your life, you'll think through these, if you'll remember these in your situations as you're making decisions, as you're leading, as you're communicating to your families, to your employees, to the people around you, it's going to make your walk, your leadership better throughout your life.
So by far, the most famous razor in history is Occam's razor.
Yeah.
And this is number one because this is the one anyone who's ever heard of a philosophical razor
Yep.
or a leadership, shortcut to making wise decisions. Occam's razor. What is it and why do we hear about it?
Yeah. So Occam's razor it's a really simple one. It's that the easiest answer is often the right answer. So that explanation, which needs the fewest factors, is likely true or best. So what this ultimately means is don't complicate your thinking when you don't need to. We can often throw things on, or we can make big assumptions. Here's what I always love this one. So it was kind of this idea. If you hear hooves, think horses, not zebras.
Well, very good.
So, but look,
Don't
and that
complicate the answer.
But
like
that
the
can sound
explanation.
so
Yeah,
dumb,
yep.
but we all do this, especially when we want it to be zebras.
Mhm.
Because if you're hearing the sound, if you're hearing the clip clop of whatever is around you, or whatever the thing is that's going on around you, the decision you need to make, or whatever you're trying to assess, you can hear the sound. And I don't know, I'm making an assumption here that horses sound like zebras. I don't know, but let's assume they do.
Chris Rock did.
And you jump over the simplest thing. It's probably a couple horses. You know what I bet it is? I bet someone has snatched a bunch of zebras, or they broke out of the zoo. They got loose. They made it all the way to Kinston to come to church here.
Yeah.
No, it's horses.
So 4-year-olds have never heard of Occam's razor.
Well, that's why they're more fun. That's why their stories are so good.
Well, and it works also in, like, let's say your spouse is late getting home. Well, some of us go right to, oh my goodness, accidents and lying in the ditch, or your kids are late from getting home. Sometimes somebody just walked in the office right before they were going to leave and they had to spend 20 extra minutes with them.
Yeah.
Like the simplest answer is, oh, in the regular workday, stuff goes wrong.
Yeah.
That's the best one. And here's why it helps us is it keeps us moving forward.
Mm.
We don't have to get bogged down with analysis paralysis or with worry about things that haven't happened. Most likely, the simplest answer is the one that's happened or that's happening.
Yeah. I think we just see this all the time in leadership, because oftentimes, and we're going to actually touch on this with a couple other ones in a way, but it's like that thing that you're trying to figure out, oftentimes is not the most complex thing. It's sometimes just the simple thing.
Mm-hmm.
We've got another one that's just on that here in a couple minutes. But let's talk about number 2. If you're good with that, we can move on to Hanlon's razor.
Hanlon? Who's
Yeah.
Hanlon? I mean, Hanlon's razor. What is this?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I like this one. Let me start us and then you can correct me.
All right.
How about that? This one is one of my favorites because of this.
Yeah.
Don't attribute to malice what you can attribute to ignorance.
Yeah.
So the campy little homey little illustration is, look, if your little brother colors on your homework when you're in 3rd grade, it's not because he hates you. It's because he doesn't know how important your homework was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just it. Don't attribute to malice what you can attribute to ignorance.
Yeah. This is my personal favorite one, the one that I actually think the Lord has shaped me significantly through, because I'm kind of the person where I jump to, if you did it to me and I didn't like it, you did it knowing how I was going to feel. And you did that on purpose. Hanlon's razor is a reminder that you actually don't have to attribute something or a decision or a choice or a word that was said to malice, when most often you can probably attribute it to ignorance. They didn't know how it was going to make you feel. They actually didn't know that was going to bother you. They may not have thought it through. These are kind of that ignorance thing. I just find that it's just an unbelievably helpful thing when we are reminded of this and we kind of put it in our hearts to be people who assume the best.
Yeah.
Because what I've found is that 99% of the time it's actually true. And on the 1% of where it's not, I end up in a better relationship with that person because I gave them the benefit of the doubt and I assumed the best about them. That the reason you said that wasn't because you're so frustrated with me. It was because you happened to be it was a hard trip in that morning, or there was some other problem, or you actually didn't know what that phrase meant. And then sometimes that you probably know this, where you give them the benefit of that. No, I meant that. But they also at the time feel loved because you assumed the best. I think we get a lot further and a lot better decisions and relationships when we apply Hadland's razor to a life.
I think so too. There's a great story at the end of Joshua when they've conquered the land. And you remember there's 2.5 tribes that stay on the east side of the Jordan over today in what is the country of Jordan.
Yeah.
But in order for them to settle there after they had conquered Og and Sihon, I think those two kings over there north of Moab, Joshua says to them, or Moses says to them, hey, but you guys have to send all your warriors into the promised land to help settle the promised land for the other 9.5 tribes. So they do, and they send them in, and it's 5 years settling the land and conquering the land. And then when the 2.5 Transjordan tribes get to go back, they, at the place they all cross the Jordan River, this is Joshua 22-ish, at the place they cross the Jordan River, they build a temple, or not a temple, but an altar of witness. And they say to themselves, ha, we're on the other side of the Jordan. We're not in the land. The rest of the tribes are going to pretend we're not part of Israel. So we're going to build this altar of witness so that they will remember that we're part of them. Well, somebody stumbles across it a week and a half later or whatever, and somebody from within the 9.5 tribes in the promised land, and they say, look at these clowns. They're already worshiping the Canaanite gods, building all sorts of altars. Israel to arms, we're going to conquer. Can you believe this? This is actually in there. And finally it comes out, y'all just give them the benefit of the doubt. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Ask them first. Talk to them first. Don't muster the troops. And it turns out that, it was just an altar of witness. It wasn't an altar to a false god.
Yeah. It's so helpful.
Benefit of the doubt. And
one of the beauties of this one, and I think why it's been so helpful for me, is because it helps when I'm breaking this down and assuming the best of them. There's a couple questions we can ask ourselves, and it puts me in their shoes because it's giving them the benefit of the doubt. And I go, well, why do I? So a couple questions. Why do I feel this way? How do I know this person acted out of bad intention?
That's key.
Are there other instances where they acted this way? That helps me just go, oh, that's an anchor. That's a reminder that they do act this way sometimes. Have I spoken to them about it? What is the probability that I am incorrect? This is a good one. Remember, anytime you're frustrated with somebody, it's worth just going, well, what are the chances I'm wrong?
I'm wrong.
Number 6, could I be biased in the moment?
Biased.
And 7, what other possible reasons could make them behave this way? It's going, let me take a moment before I react on them to try to understand them. I think it's just so helpful. I love number 2. Yeah.
Hadland's razor, Occam's razor. Now let's go down to Sagan's razor.
Yeah.
Sagan. Wow. These philosophers have great names.
All right. So Sagan's razor is an extraordinary claim, requires extraordinary evidence.
Oh.
So just the other day, a good friend of mine, an elder here, a Major Hunter, was talking about how they saw this, I think it was like a 8-point, 9-point buck. And I don't bat an eye at that.
Right.
Why? Because he's always out there. He's had them but if he'd come up to...
There's 9-point bucks everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, that seems good. I don't know. But if he'd walked up to me and goes, you know what my son got the other day? A unicorn. I'd have looked at him and like, well, I know who you are. I know you can joke, but it doesn't seem like you're joking. But I know you're not a liar. But can you prove it to me? See, seeing a buck the other day is not a shock to me. Can you show me
around? Yep.
Oh man, can you show me a picture of it? Because I'm assuming that's true. I'm not asking for evidence really. I don't need that much because I believe it. But the claim that you found a unicorn, that's an extraordinary claim.
Yeah. You're going over to his garage to watch it.
It's not just let me see the picture. Yeah, let me
touch that thing.
Yeah.
The more extraordinary a claim, the more extraordinary the evidence is required.
Yeah.
And I think this is, as we think about it in the Christian life, I think this is why the Lord has been so gracious to give us so much evidence of the resurrection, historical evidence, because it is an extraordinary claim. But when you start digging into it, you see, oh my goodness, well, there's this piece of evidence, this piece of evidence, this piece of evidence, and there is no mythical nature of it like the gods on Olympus. It is dirt under your fingernails validity to it, because wow, there's so many ways you can see that Jesus died and that Jesus was raised. So, though there's an extraordinary claim, the proof or the evidence or the substantial nature of it is such that it's got to be bigger. I like Sagan's razor.
Yeah, I think like a practical way just to apply this is like I think we need the reminder of, hey, when you're communicating something, think about how extraordinary the claim or the thing that you're teaching is. Like, so with the resurrection, if it is a fairly, well, I'll put fairly in quotes there, extraordinary claim, put in the effort to give extra evidence for it, because it just helps people.
Well, it separates us from the fundamentalists.
Yeah. and so, I mean, like, and I don't think this is a great way, I think, to be able to lead your kids. Like, hey, if all of a sudden you're telling me that you spent 45 minutes, in the Word this morning, and the Lord showed up in this amazing way, and, you haven't never spent more than 2, like, that's an extraordinary claim. It's okay to say, hey, well, walk me through those things. Right. Like, you can lead them to help. Like, I actually think it helps build trust and foster community. Like, and I think it's a really helpful thing that, hey, it's not wrong to question things when they're extraordinary.
Yeah.
And so that's an okay thing to do.
Yeah, very good. Well, the next two laws or razors or principles kind of go together. They're distinct, but they do kind of overlap. So first of all, let's hit Parkinson's law, which has nothing to do with the disease. But Parkinson's law says that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. Tell us about that one, Ben. I mean, is there any more to say?
True.
Yeah.
I think this is one of those things, and why this is so helpful is very few of us want to admit that this is true. Because we think that, hey, if I set a long deadline, that gives me plenty of time to and I'll get it done in this short amount of time. But it is amazing how often, when something that normally, if I just dedicated time to it that for 20 minutes, but I give it an hour, why does it take me an hour?
Yeah.
Because I really only needed 20 minutes. And I just find this one to be frustratingly true in my life. And now making this assumption when I sit down going, okay, if I strip away everything else, how long is this thing do I think it's going to take me? And I find I am far more productive. So what do we do about it?
Well, I think you actually lean into it. So if you have a whole day to do something, but it'll expand to fill the whole day, but it's really a 2-hour project, set an appointment after 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like go meet someone for lunch, and that way you say to yourself, well, I got to get this done before my lunch appointment. And so you focus your time and you get it. That's why back in the old days, the newspapers would actually get to you every day because the deadline gets them. And the journalists with a deadline, they get it done. If they have a whole month, it just takes long. So I think for me, what has helped me is not spending, quote unquote, a whole day studying and preparing a sermon, but spending 2-hour chunks.
Yeah.
And those 2 hours I can focus instead of, oh, well, you know what? Let me just check email one more time because I got all day.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of, it's like when you're a kid and your mom says, clean your room, you have till tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, you do it in the last 10 minutes before tomorrow.
Yeah. And I think that I think this is a really helpful one for a lot of people because not all of us have the jobs where you go in, you check in, or you click.
Right. We're not all on assembly lines.
Yeah. And so there's something where it's like you have the things that have hard deadlines. Like every Sunday night, I know the meal is coming. And there's the things that have to get done for that. But I also have the things where it's like, well, we could probably film this podcast on Tuesday, or it could be Thursday, or we might do it next Monday or something like that. But it's on, okay, but when is this going to get done? Because it often gets pushed back further and further. Why? Because I think of the things with deadlines.
By the way, that's the difference between excellence and perfectionism. See, we could have spent 4 more days crafting this podcast.
Yeah.
And still, and have tried to get to perfection. We still wouldn't have because we can't. But in our minds, we think we can get to perfection.
Yeah.
But excellence is what we're going for. And we're going in all of life, in all of leadership, in all of raising our kids, in all of whatever it is. We just need to settle at excellence, because we can't attain perfectionism, and so leave it aside.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's why, you preach every Sunday. You bring the word every Sunday night. I bring the word every Sunday morning. We sleep through the night every Saturday night. But if we were perfectionists, we would be up every hour, finishing, changing, editing. We don't. We do our best and trust God. That's what excellence is.
Amen.
Okay, so Parkinson's law, work expands to fill the time. So to me, the way you help here is set some appointments to break up your large time. Now, number 5, when you sent these to me and I read them and I'm like, wait, number 5, tell us about this because it seems to be on the wrong side of Parkinson's law.
Yeah, so Hofstadter's law is number 5. And it's just this, that things usually take longer than we think they will.
So here I'm setting the 2-hour limit, but I really need a 4-hour limit.
Well, I think there's so much in life is about having the drive to go get it done, but also the humility to go, it may take a little longer than I thought it would. And that's exactly what Hofstadter's law is. I think we find this to be true.
Yeah.
All those, because, it's how everybody else, that professional is like, I could do that. That's not that big of it. Like, that's not that hard. Well,
it is.
Well, yeah, exactly. And let me give you an example of this. Here's why I think this matters. So when I first started communicating and preaching, I just assumed that, everybody spent like a certain amount of time, or like that things came easy, or like sermons were easily written, or like work was easily done. But I remember sitting down for the very first sermon I ever wrote, and I bet I spent 30 hours on it because I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
And it took so much longer than I thought it would. Because I'm looking at some of these major guys or these other communicators, and they're like, yeah, I spent about 3 hours. Oh.
That wasn't me, by the way. You did not ask me that.
Well, no, this is, yeah. But they've been preaching for 60 years. And they're really talented and gifted. And I'm over here going, this is my first one. Right. Why would it, having a bit of an assumption. So if you think you'll finish your homework in an hour, it might actually take 2 hours. I mean, just remember, I think this is one of the places where it's so helpful. And this is a bit with the excellence and perfection thing, and why sometimes, or 99% of the time, it's never worth it to go that little bit. That often the last 10% of a task takes 90% of the time. That you can set yourself up for a good place, and then it's like that extra little bit to get it done takes so much more because you're fine tuning. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So the way that this is always affected by you is when I walk into your office and I go, hey, you got 5 minutes? And then we walk out an hour and a half later.
Yeah, but now I just translate.
Yeah.
I do the conversion in my head.
Yeah. It's been, so there's dog years and bin time.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's been 5 minutes. There's been 5 minutes. But I think actually the optimism bias that I live with, from the cognitive biases, I always think things won't take as long as they do. Yeah. And so it's just helpful. Yep. I gotta slow myself down and say, yep, plan adequately.
Yeah.
It probably will take longer. Let me just add 20%, 30% in my head.
Yeah. I think a helpful thing here is just remembering, this is a biblical thing. Count the cost of when you're sitting down to do something. Yeah. Count the cost of it. That in Parkinson's law, remember that I want to count the cost of knowing how long that this could take, but also count the cost that it may take longer. Like those are helpful things to be able to think down, navigate the whole project. What does it take to get from at the very beginning of the idea stage to the finishing of thanking everybody at the end? Like walk through it, count that cost, and be able to set a space for it to be able to get it done. I think that's so helpful.
Well, the next two are on how we make decisions and how we process the information to make the decisions. So number 6 here, 6 and 7 we'll talk about, but 6 is anchoring bias, where you are anchored by the first thing you learn. And that influences how you see the next thing. Yeah. So tell us about this illustration you just had.
Well, so
student ministry.
Remember, anchoring bias is also a cognitive bias.
Yeah, we did talk about this one in the cognitive biases.
And so it can lead us astray. One of the ways that I've seen it lead us a little astray, but I've also seen it affect so many is we just had a Halloween party for a couple of weeks ago for our student ministry. And so one of the things that we've done is we've brought in a big jar of gummy worms. And we have this game because a lot of our students love gummy worms. And we let them do the classic count how many or guess how many are in there. Yeah. And so they look at the jar. You think of it, we always do it with gummy bears, with VBS or whatever it is, but we did it with gummy worms. And so this thing is a whole package and has, almost literally 350 in there. And so our very first student, there's a line of them. They're all kind of going, oh, I want those. The first one goes, I know exactly, I'm really good at this. He's like, there's an equation you do with this. And he's in his phone, he's typing on it, and he's on his calculator. And he's like, okay, there's 100. And I'm going.
So it's the first choice, the first guess.
And so the other 7 or 8 people around him are here, and they're like 100. Oh, and what do? They're affected by the first guess, by that anchor that's dropped. And so what's so interesting is the next 7 or 8 guesses were all around 100. And I'm looking at that going, you could count more than 100 just looking through it. But they were affected by the first guess.
Yeah.
We do this all the time. We've talked before. I mean, this is what so many like stores will do. You know, the thing that's really $100, but now it's 50. It's 50% off of the regular price of 200. So now you're like, man, this is a great deal.
Because I think 200 is
Yeah.
That's right.
And you're like, oh, I would love to get something that's 50% off. I mean, look out for this on Black Friday. Like, it's coming.
That's coming. It's true. Well, and we see this in the workplace or in churches or even at home, but in interpersonal relationships. You know, Proverbs 18 says, the one who states his case first seems right until the other comes and examines him.
Yeah.
But the point is, the one who states the case first has the anchoring effect.
Yep.
And so, oh, that must be how it is.
Yeah.
And so this is what's super careful as a leader, as someone who is trying to get to wisdom and health and better decisions, is not to be anchored by just the first one that talks.
Yeah. I think another practical example of that is, remember, like, as a leader, you are imparting this in a way, like, not to take advantage in a bad way, but you, like, remember, like, as you're communicating, that first 5 minutes is a helpful 5 minutes to set the stage for people as you're communicating, as you're leading them. Like, it's so, like, we were just talking about this the other day with children, like, how much of their behavior is found in what? The first 5, or is created in the first 5 years. I mean, look, that's some anchoring effect right there. And so in that first 5 minutes of your board meeting, of your, of the sermon, of whatever you're trying to communicate, or when you're just sitting down with your spouse or with your kids, like that first couple of minutes can make all the difference. You're setting the stage for them. I think it's so helpful.
Yeah, that is good.
Because they're going to be influenced by it.
Well, the next thing on decisions here is Eisenhower's matrix. And are we talking Ike?
Yeah, we are.
Wow. So all right. So we've got Eisenhower here. And he, give us this one, because I actually didn't learn it as Eisenhower's matrix, or if I did, I had forgotten it.
Yeah.
But give us what this is, because I love this one. This one is fantastic.
So Eisenhower famously said that there were 2 kinds of problems, the urgent and the important. And so he says this: I have 2 kinds of problems, the urgent and the important. The urgent are not important, and the important are never urgent. So the Eisenhower matrix is really 4 quadrants, right? So there's the urgent at the very top, the urgent and the not urgent. And on the left side are the important and the not important. And so in that top left quadrant, you have the do. So do it now. So
because
it's urgent and important.
I got you.
We have those things in our lives where you're like, I got to, like, this is so, like, I've got to figure this out because it's important, and I got to figure it out now because it's urgent. I mean, I'm sure we can think of a couple examples of that. When your AC or your heat goes out, AC in the middle of the summer.
In the summer, yep.
Or your heat goes out in the middle of the winter. I've had this. It's important and it's urgent. We're freezing. We got to figure this out.
We got to do it.
All right, to the right of that is the not urgent but the important. This just means decide. So you need to schedule a time to do it. Hey, remember, it's probably going to take longer than you thought it would.
Hofstadter.
But those are the things you just need to make a decision on.
So if it's important and it's urgent, you got to do it. If it's important but it's not urgent, decide when to do it.
Like, we all have there's just those, like, so if your car is getting to the point where it's slowing
oil
down
change.
and breaking down, well, I need to schedule something out because it's not urgent yet. But this is important because if I don't do this, my car's going to break down. Just something as simple as that.
So then the bottom line is not important.
Yeah.
And then not important, urgent, not important, not urgent. What are the 2 Ds for that?
So the things that are not important but urgent, you delegate. So who can do this for you? Again, we all have those things where they're not as important, but they're like, I've just got to get this done. Hey, can you take care of it? Like, I've had to learn this one because I kind of make everything important. And so I'm like, well, I've got other things that are really important to me, but this needs to get done. Hey, can you will you go upstairs and get these plates for us so we can eat? Like, or hey, will you go do this task? Like, things that other leaders or other people around you would love to do, and it helps invite them in. But they're not the most important thing for you, but they are urgent. And so you can delegate them. So we all have these things again. So the other thing is the not urgent and the not important. What do you do with that? You delete it. You get rid of it because it's not important. It's not urgent. It doesn't really matter. And it's not really urgent. So it's just there. I think you can just move past it. You want to say anything else?
Well, I think in how it plays out in our lives. So I love this, and the article that a lot of us read probably 30 years ago, 25 years ago, Tyranny of the Urgent.
Yeah.
And that's where this matrix I saw, and maybe it says in there Eisenhower, but I love it. I love that it's, we're back in World War II or something. But how it plays out at church is, let's just say, or on a team you're with, oftentimes there's a person who's not shy to voice their opinion, their suggestions, their ideas, their critiques. And so you, as the ministry leader or the team leader at work or whatever, you just want to keep the peace. And so you kind of simply adopt what they say. And you're like, all right, let's move forward. Well, it's urgent, but it's not necessarily important. And they're just getting their way because the squeaky wheel, and they're not trying to be mean or anything. They're just voicing it. And you are saying, let me keep moving and stuff. But then what's happening is you only have so much time, so much capital, so much bandwidth. And if you're spending it on the things that this person says, you're not spending it on the important things that you know is needed. So the squeaky wheel is getting the grease, and it's not necessarily helpful.
Yeah.
Tyranny of the urgent.
Yeah. And it's easy to just kind of believe that the loudest voice is the most important voice.
Yeah. That's right.
Which honestly leads us into the next one, number
All right.
8.
Tell us.
Yeah. So that number 8 is the Dunning-Kruger effect. And so I actually think we talked about this one a little bit in cognitive biases as well. But so the Dunning-Kruger effect is this, that unskilled individuals overestimate their ability and experts underestimate their ability. So when you first learn something, you may think you're an expert, even though you're not. Right. Well, because you don't know how big the world is. Like, so not too long ago, and all of you guys can leap and rejoice with me that I'm no longer running any of the sound, because for a little bit I was like, hey, I got this. All I have to know is what a couple of these knobs do. And then I don't have to worry about all those other knobs. Those are for other people. Oh, no, they all matter. That's right. For a little bit, I kind of knew what I was doing, I thought. And then you keep going a little further, and you're like, oh, I've got no idea. And so we all have those things. And so, like all the people, this is where I think we see most of them, like Facebook and Twitter, just online. Like all the people online who become experts on every topic or whatever topic, just about every other day. Mm-hmm. They're the loud voice. They might be the middle school boy in the youth room.
Who is the expert in your dinner table.
Yeah.
At the dinner table.
They're that, I mean, we know the kid who, because they've heard about it, they're an expert in it. And they're loud about it. And so the issue here where this goes wrong is when we let the person that we start listening to people who are the loudest, who act like the experts, because they're often the loudest and they're not the expert. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times the expert is just sitting there quiet because they don't have to prove that they're an expert. They know that
and they're ready to help when asked.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think people mistake being familiar with something with understanding something.
Yep. It's fair.
And I think that's where an unskilled person overestimates their comprehension just because they're familiar with the terms. And one of the things my upbringing drilled into me is talk less, smile more. Just listen a little longer. Listen a little longer before starting to talk, and don't be part of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah. And this one reminds me of kind of like that second one that we talked about, Hanlon's razor, assuming or like give it to ignorance or whatever. Just because there's the question of that you ask yourself of, what are the chances I'm wrong here? I think for a lot of us, we need to be willing to don't assume that we're always the expert on something, and ask that what are the chances I'm wrong? But what it also means, and this can be hard, I actually think, for a lot of our experts out there, whatever your field is. And so maybe it's, like a trade, or maybe it's communication, or maybe it's just leadership, or whatever it is, your business, or maybe it's running your family. You've just been a mom for a long time and you're pretty good at raising kids. It's worth, after that kind of long haul of doing something well and kind of becoming a quote unquote expert, sometimes it's worth pushing yourself to be able to just speak up when you disagree with the person. Because look, a lot of times we don't want to do that because as an expert, you see more and you're like, well, maybe I'm wrong here. Or maybe I don't see this.
That's true too.
And maybe you even assume that the other person knows as much as you do. But it's okay to actually push back at times.
Yeah, it's
Like,
needed.
You've earned it.
Mm-hmm.
It's needed.
Yep.
Because as someone who isn't the expert in that thing, sometimes I need the person to go, hey, you may not know as much as you think you do. Or as the person who might just be sitting in the middle going, I don't know who to believe here. Like, to hear that other voice and go, oh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, and to say it graciously
Yeah.
and with firmness, but not with stridency.
yeah.
And I think we can do that. And probably what we need to do is a whole episode on how do you communicate when you think someone is taking the wrong turn.
Hmm.
And that's sort of Dunning-Kruger effect
Yeah.
in the communication side.
I'll let you write that one.
Yeah, no. Well, when I learn how to do it, I'll write it. We're all
We'll see
still
you
in
in
process.
2038.
No, I'm really glad though that you said, hey, if you do have experience and expertise, don't be afraid of saying it. Because what we're not saying is you shouldn't talk.
Yeah.
We're saying that just because the first person who talks may not be an expert, we need wise, healthy, better decisions, and they are going to come by the best counsel.
Yeah.
And so just because maybe someone overestimates their ability to understand something doesn't mean you have to underestimate yours.
And so I think a practical thing to do with this is just be careful of the information you're taking in as a leader. Like, remember that a lot of people online, you have the person who just learned what the word means and the person who's done that thing for 40 years ultimately end up with just about the same platform.
Yeah, it's the democratization of
Yeah.
it's good and bad. It's got the soft underbelly.
Yeah.
Okay, well now we go to Gall's Law, and this is an interesting one that I fight against at every turn because I prize simplicity and agility in our church, in our home, like this church, and then in the home that we live. So tell us what Gall's Law is and why you included it.
Yeah. So Gall's Law is a
Maybe you don't think I'm right.
Well, I include this because of you. So I'm just kidding. So
That's what I was realizing.
Gall's Law is this is everyone who's listening is like, this sounds like Ben. Gall's Law is a complex system that is invariably found to have evolved from a simple system that worked. So that really complex thing with all the bells and whistles and all the things that go with it that you look and you're like, how in the world did that ever come? It started by being something very simple. Mm-hmm. And so a bit of the idea is that great things start simple, like learning to crawl before you walk and then run. Like that run started as a crawl, and then it became a walk, and then it became a run. And slowly you add on more, and you get strong, and the kid gets stronger, and then it becomes this thing. And you're like, oh wow. And so a piece of this is when you're evaluating things, and you're like, I'll never be able to get there. I'll never be able to create that. I'll never do that. I mean, we're having this conversation as we were getting to meet with church planners. Like over the last couple of years, as we've watched church planners kind of start the process in our CPR program or the program here. And they're like, I mean, when you're looking at it, and you're looking at all these other people who are 5 years, 10 years in, you're like, I'll never do that. But that thing, 10 years, is really a much simpler, smaller thing that's much more manageable 6 months in.
Yeah.
Because those steps get you there. I think it's such a helpful thing. What do you want to say about it?
And I think negatively you fight against the slow accretion of new protocols or requirements or guidelines or whatever. So, for instance, like every major corporation, all their HR policies come out of instances that went wrong.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, and so you do need some of that, the more people you have, but the fact of the matter is, you don't need all of it right away. And keep to the core, keep to the vision, keep to the training and motivating of the people you're working with or doing things with. And you can keep simple, lean, agile, and full of meaning. And not trying to figure out, am I, breaking subsection 3 of Article 2 of point 9 of the HR code kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? Like all those policies come out of something that went wrong. But the fact of the matter is we still started this business or have run this school or whatever it is. And let's not give up the ship too early.
Yeah.
By just having this superstructure around it of bigger policies and extra stuff and more complexity. Keep the simple in mind.
Do you think a good example of this, I'm just, as I'm processing this, is like how, kind of God's law, we have all the I mean, all of the law for on Israel, so the 10 Commandments and all the others. And then all of a sudden, Jesus comes along. He's like, I've got two actually for you. Love the
Yeah.
Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Oh, okay. And then what does he walk away? He ultimately leads down to one. Love your neighbor as I've or love others as I've loved you, right? I mean, I think there's a beauty to that, of the simplicity, that ultimately this one sums up all the others. Do you
There's
feel
a-
like,
I think the brilliance of the Jewish law versus all the laws around them is that it has the simple core.
yeah,
And there's case law so that you can think
Yeah,
through
yeah.
how to apply it. But the simple core is the 10 words.
yeah,
And God gave that first, and he gave it at Sinai, but in an environment of grace. By the way, it's always grace first,
yeah,
and then here's how you live. So those 10 words, and then that's Exodus 20. And then for the next, 100 chapters, God gives different laws and different outworkings of the 10 words, the 10
Yeah, yeah.
commandments. So yes, to your point, the simplicity is there. The case law
yeah,
is around it, but it all comes back. The complexity of the Jewish law is not nearly as much as the Talmud and the Mishnah think.
yeah,
They're going in the wrong direction. You need to go back to the 10 commandments.
yeah.
And so to your point, well, then how about Jesus also saying, love God, love neighbor? Amen. Because isn't that the 10 commandments? So yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. 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 Well, and
Yeah.
so, and this is a kind of a different way to look at this, but I've had to like kind of think about this just like in communication. Like I default to complexity equals better.
Yeah.
And so if I put the big word in there, or kind of try to communicate the really complex thing in a complex way, like, with the more the bells and whistles, people are like, oh, I'm going to get that more because it's fuller and it's every
Yep.
detail. But it's like, there's something to the simplicity behind when you can reduce the 20-word sentence to the 6-word sentence.
Yep.
And then it's just, I think it's a little bit easier. And so I think that's true with our communication, but it's also just true as we're setting up processes and just kind of what's going on with the things that we lead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Not too much complexity, but it's there.
Yeah.
Gall's law is the nub is there. Don't over complexify. Okay. We have two more, and we're going to do them super quick here. The Hawthorne effect, which is really simple. When people know they're being watched, they work harder. The payout for leading is we got to do accountability.
Yeah.
We got to do management better. When people know they're being watched, they work harder.
Yeah. Look, I think an easy application for all of Christians is the reminder that God sees all, hears all, knows all. Like, I just think that's a helpful thing. Like, when you're putting off the things you need to get done, when you're just choosing to go golf or, whatever it is.
Wait a minute.
Well, look, I'm just calling them as I see it, Jason.
Wait a
Or
minute.
whatever it is. When it's the thing that you should do, and the thing to meet the standard you feel like you need to hit, and you're choosing not to go in, because who's really going to notice? Who's really going to care? Who can really see it? Like, I think just having the reminder to know that even though you might not have the one person, 2 people, 5 people around you who are seeing you, who are pushing you, like the Lord is there. He sees all, knows all, hears all. Like, that's a great.
And he's there graciously.
Exactly. And he's not, just sitting going, are you doing good enough? I mean, come on. Like, I need you to get this report in. Like, no, he doesn't. But he's calling you to something. He's calling you up to something. I just think we need to remember that.
Yeah.
But I also think it's an invitation to have accountability in our lives. Like, look, my walk with the Lord just goes better when I've got 3 people, 5 guys in my life who are going, hey, how's your walk going? And maybe they only remember because I'm that guy to them. And I go, hey, how's your walk going? And we're just asking each other. And we always know that at some point there's really nothing off limits. And they're just asking me what the Lord's doing. And like, I have accountability.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't do as well when I don't have it.
Yeah, I think you're right, because of Hawthorne's effect.
Yeah.
When we're being watched, we actually go better. We work harder. Okay, last one, Grace's razor. So now finally we come back to a razor.
Yeah. Well.
All right. What is it?
So this one is to address what the speaker actually meant instead of addressing the literal meaning of what they actually said. So there's a little bit of giving people the benefit of the doubt here.
Okay.
But oftentimes, and I'm begging you to get this one, since some of you have to sit under my teaching and preaching, sometimes what we say is not what we meant. right? The thing
In
that,
preaching?
or just we accidentally say something that's not what we meant to say.
Okay, yeah. Yeah,
Does that
yeah,
make
yeah,
sense? And so this is saying address what the speaker actually meant,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and instead of addressing what they actually may have said. Is that
So you're saying go to the sort of like the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law.
sure?
So how do we make that differentiation? Like, how do like, if someone is coming to me, am I trying to, am I trying to discern the motive behind the word? Because I think we don't like that in the world today where everyone's imputing motives.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is not that. What you're saying is, even if someone mistakes in how they say something, you can understand what they're trying to say and go to that, but confirm it.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a fine place to be asking questions. Hey, you said this. A bit of the benefit of the doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking you meant this. Can you confirm that for me? Or will you help me understand why you said it this way? Again, and when you come at it from a positive place, you're not ultimately questioning them and putting them in a negative, but it's fine to go, hey, you accidentally said this thing, but I think you meant this thing. Like, why did you say, maybe I'm wrong. But it's a helpful place just to be. I mean, I think we always need to try to confirm what that person meant. Like this is where intent matters, because there's a portion where we all accidentally speak something that we didn't mean to say, but the intent behind it really matters. Like, I mean, maybe a helpful example of this was, I remember, almost 6 years ago when my mom passed away, a lot of people said a lot of things, and all of their intent was to love me and to help me through it. And a lot of them actually were kind of hurtful, a lot of the comments, but they were just saying what they didn't know the words to say.
Right.
They just wanted to help. And so I took a step back. I did assume the best. And I was like, I don't think you came to my house. You took time off work to come all the way to my house to say some mean thing to me, like intentionally. I think you meant to say this other thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So go to what they mean.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Even with the bungling efforts, which is all of us. We have at different times. Well, Ben, these are great.
Yeah.
These have been very fun to walk through and to help think through. Oh, what are some ways that I can get through life and leadership with healthy, wiser decisions through different razors, rules of thumb, things that aren't 100% true all of the time, like the law of God, but are like proverbs that are generally, observably true in life. So thank you for getting us into this today. And friends, thank you for being with us here on Encounter Grace. And we'd love for you to leave a thumbs up rating and a like on YouTube or Facebook, or certainly in iTunes or Spotify. It always helps as we're helping folks learn about good places to get good discipleship information. Encountering Grace, here's what we do at Encounter Grace. We want to see God's work in the world for our good. We want to help thinking Christians. So that's what we're about here. Bless you for being with us. Ben, thank you for being with us, and we'll see everybody the next time.